folks, we are back up live here on the Freetarian Show once again. Thank you so much for joining me. Just leaving the dispensary here in Mesa, Arizona. Health for Life Mesa North Store, serving some of the finest cannabis in the entire state of Arizona to what is clearly some of the finest and most enlightened patients in the entire state of Arizona as well. And now we're gonna head back, grab a quick bite to eat, get some cardio and a little bit of weightlifting in, and we're gonna crash out and do it all again tomorrow. So let's talk a little bit about law. Talk about law and about how it applies to you, or does it apply to you? Well, what kind of laws are we talking about? We're not talking about natural law, because of course natural law applies to everybody. You can't violate someone else's right to life, liberty, or property without committing a very real crime. Therefore, natural law is not what we're going to talk about today. What we are going to talk about today, of course, is man-made law. Scumbags running around calling themselves government, writing these English words on a piece of paper, which is really nothing more than their opinion, turning it around, putting a stamp of approval on it, and then obligating the rest of us to obey their opinions. Well, when you understand that you own yourself and that government outside of enforcing natural law is really illegitimate, then you start to ask the questions, the all-important leading questions, using the Socratic method, which brings out contradictions in your opponent's arguments. And in this case, the opponent would be the state. Does the state's man-made laws actually apply to you? Speeding laws, jaywalking laws, drug prohibition laws, operating a business without a business license, those types of laws, tax laws. Do any of these laws actually apply to you? Well, when you go to court, using the court's own rules, all elements of every crime must be satisfied with facts. Facts, not opinions, not assumptions, not hearsay, but facts. Every element of a crime must be satisfied with facts. So let's take a look at cannabis prohibition laws for an example. So, a handful of human beings wrote these laws on pieces of paper, did their ritual, government, religious, whatever it is you want to call it, where they end up ending the religious ceremony with a stamp of approval that goes right on those papers. Then they turn around to peaceful Americans and say, you're now obligated to follow our opinions that we've put on this paper and are now calling it law. And then they brainwash Americans through 13 years of public education to accept their opinions on paper as law that's applicable, because how many times have we ever heard this? America is a land of laws. Really? Is that your opinion, or is what you are saying right now based on facts? Well, I venture to say that people don't have facts. Nobody has facts proving that these man-made laws actually apply to anyone. How so? Just ask the prosecutor that is charging you with speeding. Ask him if he's got the facts that prove the element of applicability, that prove the law actually applies to you. And of course the judge might say, sir, you're in our court. Rest assured our laws apply. Oh, really, Your Honor? Well, it's nice of you to share with me your opinion, can you please present to me the facts that helped you come to the conclusion that these speeding laws actually apply to me? And I can tell you that the judge nor the prosecutor will be in possession of any facts proving speeding laws apply to you. Therefore, if the element of applicability cannot be satisfied with facts, well, the case must be dismissed, and in many cases gets dismissed when you challenge the applicability of the law. It's just the way it is. And if you don't believe me, well, Mark Stevens has been asking for years and years and years and years for anybody to present the facts that prove these laws apply to anybody. He has had success story after success story after success story, and these aren't just success stories that he posts up on his website based on anecdotal evidence. No, he refuses to post any success story unless the folks that won their cases send in the court documents proving that they had their case dismissed every single time. Go to his website. It's all right there, along with the proof. You want to know why? Because Mark Stevens, as an anarchist, is proving his success stories, challenging the courts and the prosecutors in the states that their laws actually apply to anybody. He's proving it over and over and over again that the laws don't apply, and he's proving it with facts. On his website, you can see those facts. Go to his website, markstevens.net. It's M-A-R-C Stevens.net. Click on success stories and take a look at all the traffic tickets, felony drug possession charges, all these different man-made laws that were violated by people that Mark Stevens had consulted for, won their cases, and sent the court documents into Mark Stevens so he could post them on his website every single time. Many of the folks he's consulted for have had numerous bureaucratic attacks in the form of speeding tickets, jaywalking tickets, felony drug possession charges. They've all been thrown out. A lot of them have been dismissed with prejudice, meaning the prosecutor will not be allowed to refile that case at a later date. Just an incredible thing Mark Stevens is doing. He's a student of Lysander Spooner. I'm a student of Lysander Spooner, and you should be too. If you don't know who Lysander Spooner is, I recommend Googling him, reading his work. Well, his work really set into stone. And I read about him when I was 18 years old, and read a few things that were works of his, including the Constitution of No Authority. He's a philosopher, a great philosopher from the 1800s. Really opened my eyes to what the state really is. It's really just a bunch of human beings that are running around calling themselves government as a mask for their criminal activity, because in reality, government is just a bunch of thieves, murderers, and liars, and thugs that get away with committing crimes against human beings, peaceful, innocent human beings. And they get away with it under the color of what they call law. Of course, they have no facts to prove those laws apply, and more Americans all the time are now getting away from the idea that America's a land of laws, and instead of America's a land of freedom. If you want your law to apply to me and you want me to obey your law, well, you better prove to me with facts that law actually applies to me. So there's a lot more Americans becoming more American and asking these questions. And of course, the state is incapable of providing that evidence because there are no facts proving those laws apply to you. In fact, the reality is those laws only apply to you because they have guns and they have prisons that they're willing to throw you in if you don't obey those laws. And so they're threatening you. Well, last time I checked, threatening peaceful human beings was a crime. Well, some Americans are still indoctrinated to believe that American government folk can get away with that. Well, no, they can't. Not when you ask them for the facts, and they can't provide the facts to you. And yes, they are human beings. They have to provide facts when you call into question the applicability of their stupid laws. These are just bureaucratic attacks. And so there you have it, folks. Always challenge the applicability of the law. Always challenge jurisdiction. And you want facts proving jurisdiction. You want facts proving that the law they want to prosecute you under actually applies to you. Because if they can't prove with facts that that law actually applies to you, then that's prosecutorial misconduct. And no prosecutor wants to be accused of prosecutorial misconduct. And so you can put the ball in their court. You can back them into a corner. You can stave off a bureaucratic attack when you can use the Socratic method of questioning your opponent and just asking questions, leading questions. Leading questions are where the information's in the question and you're only seeking a yes or no to your answer. Anybody can do this, and you don't need to be 7 years in law school to figure out how to challenge liars. You need to spend 7 years in law school to learn how to deceive people, and they're really good at deceiving people. They've done it. But it's a little more difficult for them to deceive those who are awake and to deceive those that will absolutely ask the question, do you have any facts supporting your claim that your speeding laws or your jaywalking laws or your cannabis prohibition laws actually apply to me or you or anyone else? And the reality is they don't have any facts proving that, which means the element of applicability cannot be satisfied, which means the case must be dismissed. Save yourself thousands of dollars in legal fees. Save yourself some jail time. Save yourself some massive dollars that the state wants to extort from you because you went 5 miles an hour over the speed limit or whatever it is they're accusing you of doing. That's your money. You worked for it. You have every right to defend your life, your liberty, and your property. And if the money you worked for is your money, you have a right to defend it, man. You have a right to defend it against a bureaucratic attack. And when a cop issues you a speeding ticket for, say, I don't know, going 5 miles an hour over the speed limit, or whatever the case may be, that's a bureaucratic attack against your wealth, against your liberty, against your property. And you have every right to defend yourself against those bureaucratic attacks. And so Mark Stevens is out there teaching people how to defend themselves against these insane bureaucratic attacks, criminal bureaucratic attacks. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to teach you all how to do the same thing. Then you have the ethical anarchist out in Hawaii who is out there teaching people how to defend themselves against bureaucratic attacks. We're going to blow this up, man. It's amazing. You know, let me tell you a story about when I first learned about Lysander Spooner. I was on my road to becoming libertarian from really what I was a hardcore left-wing socialist coming out of high school in Canada, just because that's the way I was taught, man. It's just the way I was indoctrinated to believe. But when I started to ask questions, I started to become more conservative economically. And as I started to ask even more questions, I became more libertarian. And as I continued to ask questions and dig deeper into issues, I became an anarchist with no use for government whatsoever. However, stating that I'm an anarchist and seeing what Mark Stevens is accomplishing today, I want to tell you the story about when I first read a few items of Lysander Spooner. I was 18 years old, and I understood what Lysander Spooner was saying in the Constitution of No Authority. But I was still in that mindset that, hey, the state's the state. It's the way it is. Nobody's going to change. We got to learn to vote in libertarians to lessen the burden of the state on peaceful people. But I continued to believe in what Lysander Spooner was laying out, because you can't really, when you look at the facts of what he's talking about, you can't deny that you do own yourself. You are an individual human being that has full ownership over your own life. And no other human being, even those calling themselves government, have a right to dictate how you live your life peacefully. So I understood what he was saying, but to put it into practice, I couldn't make that connection. Then I ran into Mark Stevens. I haven't met Mark Stevens yet, but I listened to his radio show, I watch his YouTube videos, and I've read his book. And I gotta tell you, this guy put Lysander Spooner's philosophy into practice. And now I'm completely of the mindset, you know what? That's all it took was to see one guy who's a student of Lysander Spooner to say, you know what? I'm going to challenge it. I'm going to do what Lysander Spooner says, and I'm going to challenge it. So Mark Stevens went out there and challenged it, and it is amazing to watch the state employees squirm under questioning. We're talking lawyers, judges, police officers, prosecutors. I mean, he's interviewed them all, and IRS agents. It's absolutely incredible. And yeah, now I have no use for government. I can now see a philosophy that I learned when I was 18 years old from Lysander Spooner. I now see that philosophy being exercised, being implemented. And Mark Stevens is the man I'm seeing do that. He taught the ethical anarchist that lives in Hawaii how to do the same thing. And I will say this ethical anarchist in Hawaii, I gotta tell you, I love listening to this guy. He's, you can tell, he's full of himself. Absolutely full of himself. But let me tell you something. He has every right to be full of himself. He is destroying the state's logic, or, so-called logic. He is literally smashing the state. Just asking questions. Asking leading questions. That's all he's doing. Anybody can do this. But you just have to know the philosophy behind it, and then you just have to go out and ask for the facts. That's all you need to do. Ask for the facts that prove these man-made laws actually apply to you. That's it. That's all you do. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. Just the facts. All right, guys, till next time. This is the Freetarian Show. Subscribe to the channel if this is your first time here. Hit the notification button so you'll be notified every time I post up a new video or go live stream. And until next time, folks, peace.